Hi, welcome to Leilani's kitchen. Today we are making cream of asparagus soup. Now I've got my chicken stock in my pot. Now I buy local rotisserie chickens at the store and I cook them down with my mirepoix and I make a nice stock and I keep that in the freezer for whenever I want to make a nice soup, risotto, whatever. Anyway, so now we've got our asparagus in there, our celery. You can chop it up a rough chop because we're going to cook it down so it doesn't have to be precise. The onion, I like to keep that root on. It's a nice anchor. You peel off the skin. And that anchor will keep you from having your onion fall apart as you make your dices. Now, when you make your dice, you can do small or large, depending on the size you want. You go down the sides and you go down the middle. The anchor keeps it all together. You dice it up, throw the root away, and you've got a nice clean dice. Now, if you want larger ones, you make your dices larger, your slices. And if you want the smaller ones, you just keep them small and together. We throw that all into our soup. And we're going to cook that down. Now, we make sure that our broth covers our vegetables. We don't want too much broth. We want a nice thickness in our soup. So I try to keep it just like an equal, just so the broth is covering the vegetables, because it's all going to cook down, the liquids are going to come together, and it will become soupy. Now we're going to bring that to a boil. A little salt and pepper. Now I use a fresh thyme in this, and I like to take the leaves off the stem. I believe that when you do that and you chop your leaves, you actually let the oils out of the thyme, and it releases a very good flavor rather than just throwing a whole stem into the soup. I don't think you really get a good thyme flavor with that. It's really about releasing the oils of the herbs. So with this amount of soup, I am using quite a bit of thyme. I would say like 8 sprigs. Chop it up nicely. Use our scraper and then throw it into our pot. Now I use a scraper. It's very easy to get all your vegetables into the pot without having to, use your hands. Try to scoop it up. I'm going to wipe my cutting board off a little bit. I am going to serve this with croutons. It goes very well with this nice cream soup. That would be on another video. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and leave any comments or questions in the comment section. So now, once you see that your vegetables have cooked down, the asparagus has got a dull green on it, it's totally cooked through. Usually I wouldn't cook asparagus like this if you're just roasting it for a dinner party or for a meal, but in a soup you really want to get that dull green in there to make sure it's cooked through. And I'm going to put it into a blender. Now when blending hot liquids, you must ventilate your blender. So I put it on. I put the cover on and I tilt it slightly so that air can get out, and then I slowly tap it. So now I'm putting my soup into the blender. I want to puree it, but using hot liquid in a blender you must ventilate it because the hot steam will, if you put the cover on tightly, it'll pressurize and pop the cover off your blender. So you must ventilate it, and I go very slow. I give it a couple small pulses, and then once I see the steam has been released, I puree it until it's a very, very fine puree. I have my roux going, butter, flour, and that's going to be my thickening agent for my soup. I use very little. It's for amount of soup I'm making, I only use 1/4 of butter to 1/4 of flour. Now, once that's come to a glossy finish, my roux is nice, I throw my blended asparagus soup into the pot and I stir to get it thickening. Now you see it thickens very, very fast. So I must pull that off because the bubbles are starting to splatter everywhere. So I'm going to finish off the rest of my soup and then put it back on the burner and continue cooking. Now once again, I want to tell you how important it is to ventilate your blender, do slow bursts, and then puree. But do not just put it on a puree to begin with. You will get splattered with hot soup. So now that my puree is coming along, I'm going to throw it back into the pot of the first asparagus soup. And then we're going to continue cooking that until we have a nice thickening and a glossiness. So this will thicken. We will continue to cook it until it starts to thicken and coats our spoon and comes to a light boil. We don't want it to boil heavily because it'll scorch. It is a thick soup, so we want to bring it to a nice boil. Now I do serve this soup with croutons. You can check out our YouTube page for the crouton recipe and see how that's done. It's one of my favorites. It's good for salads, soups, even snacking. They're very delicious. Now you can see the thickening is coming into the soup now. Got a nice bubbly going on. The glossiness is coming through. Smells delicious. And I'm going to bid you all a fine aloha and thank you for watching Leilani's Kitchen.